We're going to be looking at finding the endpoint using a midpoint. So let's say we have a line segment, and a line segment will have two endpoints, and it also has a midpoint. We're going to look at a question that gives us maybe one of the endpoints in the midpoint, and the other endpoint is the question. Where normally with midpoint formula, you're trying to find what the midpoint of a line segment is. So here's a formula that's commonly given out. The midpoint of the x value of the midpoint and the y value of the midpoint are equal to these two formulas, and they're two formulas that are already set up in a coordinate, written like a coordinate, I guess is the best way to explain it. So though they look like they're one formula, this commas are supposed to be separating two different formulas. And these are the two different formulas down here. So I have them actually written differently. The x midpoint is equal to x1, so one of the endpoints x values plus one of the other endpoints x value divided by 2. And the y value of the midpoint is identical, just using y values. Use one of the endpoints y values plus the other endpoints y value and divide by 2. Okay, and they've just kind of put it into a coordinate already. So here's our question. A line segment has an endpoint of -9 and 3 and a midpoint of -1 and 4. What is the other endpoint of the line segment? So I'm going to use the two separated formulas, and then we're just going to put them together. So our x midpoint is equal to one of the endpoints plus the other endpoint divided by 2, and our y value of our midpoint is equal to one of the y values of the endpoint and the other one divided by 2. So we kind of got to say what is going to be what. So this is an endpoint, so we'll highlight it in yellow, and we'll call it endpoint value 1. Because technically there are two, as you can see, one's denoted as x1, the other is x2. So we'll call these the 1s, which means if this is 1, this will be our x1, our -9, and our y1 will be 3. Our other coordinate that has been given is the midpoint, okay? And the midpoint in our formula is written as xm, and maybe I should write it in blue, our xm and ym, okay? So those are what we'll be replacing. So our xm, okay, is actually -1. So when I go to write this in, it will say -1 is equal to, we'll do this in red, our -9 is, it's a funny looking 9, our x1. So our x1 will be replaced with -9, okay, plus x2 is our unknown, and that's the x value of the other midpoint, and it's still all divided by 2. So let's work out our x value first. Because we want to isolate our x value, we're going to move the 2 over, and essentially move 2 over. Because this is a division sign, we're going to multiply by 2. So this will read -1 times the r2 here is equal to -9 plus x2. -1 times 2 is -2. And we need to move our -9 to the other side of the equation. When we do that, because it's a negative, we'll be adding 9 on both sides, essentially creating a 0. So we get -2 plus 9, okay, is equal to our other endpoint's x value, which means our other endpoint's x value is 7. So when we go to write the coordinate for our other endpoint, our x value, our x2, will be 7, and our y2 is something we still have to figure out. So using the same ideas, let's plug in our values. Our y midpoint, okay, is a value of 4. So 4, or positive 4, is equal to, and our y1, okay, so one of our endpoints was the value of 3. So there's our y1. So we replace it with 3. Plus y2 being the other endpoint that's unknown, divided by 2. Exact same process because it's the exact same thing. When we move it over, we'll be multiplying. 2 times 4 will give us 8, is equal to 3 plus y2. When we move 3 over, it becomes negative, so we subtract by 3, which means it'll be the value of 5. y2 is equal to 5. So our other endpoint, or the coordinate of our other endpoint, would be 7, 5. When we did all this, we kind of reversed what we would do with our midpoint formula to solve.